Hello, you delicious people, and welcome to another episode of Intimate Conversations with a cherished friend and colleague and repeat guest, Corey Poirier. And of course, he's Canadian. We love that even more, don't we? Yes, or at least I do. The Canadians do. Let me introduce his official bio, and then we're going to get away to the races today. So Corey's amazing. He's a multiple-time TEDx, Mo Mondays, and PMX speaker. He's also the host of the top-rated Let's Do Influencing radio show, founder of the speaking program, founder of bLUtalks, of which I've been so blessed to have spoken, and he's been featured in multiple television specials. He's a Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Apple Books, and Kobo best-selling author, a columnist with Entrepreneur and Forbes magazine, featured in and on CBS, CTV, Canadian, NBC, ABC, and the Forbes Coaches Council member. And he's one of the few leaders featured twice on the popular Entrepreneur on Fire show. That sure says a lot. And he's also interviewed over, get this, 6,500 of the world's top leaders and has spoken on site at Harvard. Holy shit, dude, I didn't know you've interviewed that many people. That's extraordinary. I mean, I thought I've interviewed a lot of people and I'm always like, yeah, I've interviewed some. Like, when did you first start interviewing people for that to be the amount of people you've, I mean, it's 365 days a year, dude. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, I get this question a lot and I also get that reaction a lot. Yeah. And it's understandable because if you do the math, you're almost like, how is it physically possible?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you exactly how those numbers added up like they did. And the first part to your question is, when did I start?
Yeah.
By the way, thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's great to have you back. Yeah, great to have you back.
So as far as how it started, I was about 18 when I launched my first business publication. Doing that publication, it was roughly a year we had that publication. And for each issue of the publication, we would do like maybe 60 interviews.
Oh, wow.
But now, having said that, that was only 1 year. But I mean, that's still, that's 700 right there. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, fast forward a bunch of years, and I never felt like I closed the door on that publication properly. The reason is I literally had to walk away because I recognized that unless something changed, I wasn't going to be able to pay the bills doing it. So I had this newspaper that was basically covering its own costs. I didn't lose money. But I also had to live off the extra money. Like I needed money for me to live and the publication. And so I made the decision at the end of the year that it wasn't feasible to keep going.
Yeah.
And because I never felt like I closed the door properly, Allana, what happened was, fast forward whatever number of years it was later, I think it was like 15 years later, I was in a position where I said, okay, I can relaunch a similar publication. So I did, and for 6 years, monthly, we did the publication.
Wow.
And so the interview number would be like 70 or 80. And even though it's funny, I didn't write all the interviews because I would actually hire freelance writers, but I wanted to be sitting there doing the interviews. Yeah. So I would do like 80, 90 interviews a month. And I did that for like 5.5, 6 years.
Wow.
So, just by those and the first publication, we're probably up to like around 4,000 of the interviews. And then I had a book series in which we interviewed, give or take, about 200 people per book. And there were 5 books. So there's another 1,000. And this is all before I ever did a podcast. Like what the numbers I just told you. So then the rest have been since then for the podcast, for the documentary, I've been working on. The documentary alone, we're almost at 100 interviews.
Wow.
And so because we interviewed some people a couple times to get different takes and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's where the numbers come in. And we were able to track everything easily up until the podcast because everything was printed. Yeah. So in other words, it was and that's how I did it. Like crazy. I actually, when we first started, and I wanted to know the numbers, and I don't remember what it was at that point, but it was like close to 4,000. But what we did was we actually just went through I literally went through every issue of the paper and counted the stories, and I knew which ones I had done the interviews for. I mean, so the long story short is that before I even ever, sat in front of a mic in my life, I was already into the heavy thousands. So that's where the numbers come in, and then I've been podcasting for 12 years. So that's where the other, between that and all those other projects, that's where the other 2,500 roughly come in. But yeah, that's how it happened.
Wow. What do you think is one of the greatest skills you've developed as a human by interviewing so many times? What have you learned?
So I'll tell you one of the things that changed me at my core, and it was a result of interviews, I talk a lot in talks and conversations about personality types. I used to do actual lectures and presentations on reading and adjusting to the 4 personality types. And my personality type is a mixture between what I call, now I went by colors, so I would say red and yellow. So red is a director, a leader, a person that's always to the point, all about business, et cetera, et cetera. A yellow is, hey, what's going on, Allana? They're the social butterfly. And I'm a mixture of the two. So whenever I'm really focused on business, I'm a red, but any other time I'm a yellow. And so very social. And so what that meant, though, is that I was the person, what's that? There's a shirt I saw, goes around on Facebook every now and then. It says something like, it's not that I want to interrupt people, it's that I get too excited and I can't contain myself, or something like that. I was that person before I started doing interviews. Like, if we were having a conversation, I wouldn't be able to just sit here and listen to a person for 10 minutes and not interject. Now I watch for pauses. I watch whenever the other person's ready to say something. And if I do, I pull myself in and say, okay, now it's their turn. And so one of the things I learned was how to be a better listener, but also understanding why it was important, like understanding why it wasn't just about me and why it shouldn't be just about me. So that's one of the things I learned. Another thing that I feel was something that I gained as a skill was, I don't want to say the ability to necessarily read a situation, but an ability to maybe disarm people based on reading their personality type. So what I mean by that is I have a lot of people that will say, I shared something with you I've never shared in my life before. And that's interviews. And then, of course, even just personally, like my personal calls, like when I talk to people, tell me stuff that I don't even know I want to know. Like, they go really deep. But even in interviews, like I just remember this, I'll never forget an interview with Lisa Nichols where she said, Corey, I did 155 interviews in the last few months, but I've done thousands in my life. And you got me to say 2 things I've never shared in my life before. And so,
do you remember what those were?
You know what? The stories, I don't remember. One of the stories was a story about her being in the water, and I think her cousin was in the water swimming with her. And there was a message behind it, but I think it was something like her cousin was struggling, and I might not have been able to swim, but struggling. And then she had to help her, and it was something to do with a message around that. And I can't remember the second one, but that was one of the 2. I know it was a story about a relative in the water. I remember that much. And yeah, so I mean, she said, these are things I've never shared. You got them out of me. And then, I think recently I interviewed Mark Victor Hansen, and he said, I don't think I've ever said this before. And, you think of it, a guy like him, Chicken Soup for the Soul, him and Jack have probably each done more than 5,000 interviews. And for him to say, I've never said this before in my life. So I have to say, I think I have some whatever unique, and I didn't start with it, but some unique ability to maybe have people feel comfortable sharing stuff with me that they're not normally sharing. So I don't know if that's a skill or not, but it feels like it is, because I'm obsessed with learning stuff about people that they're not sharing with everybody else. So to me, it's a skill for what I'm trying to achieve.
Well, I'm trying to sort of go with what you're consciously competent of, or maybe an unconscious competence, as we relate it to intimate conversations with people who are out there dating, or they're in a relationship and they actually think they know who their partner is. And yet we all change and evolve all the time. So to keep that, as you say, like you're obsessed with getting to know them, or your curiosity, like to really have that level of safety and comfort that we provide another, be it our first date or our 20th year being married. That's a skill that people listening, I believe, can really benefit from. Who do we be? How do we be? What do we do? What do we not do? So that the other feels so safe in our presence that we can more intimately, vulnerably, transparently connect. So I think this is a wonderful superpower to be able to disarm people and make them feel comfortable, be a better listener. How, if you're willing to share, how has that with your primary relationship with your children's mother? Like, how has your ability to listen deepened your relationship?
I feel like, so we're both, going back a second to that yellow personality type, we're both yellows.
Okay.
I would argue that, knowing what I know about personality types, her and my mother, and maybe my grandmother to a large degree as well, are all yellows. And when I say yellows, I mean they're very, very social people. So if somebody listening on the outside says, how would I know? If you came to Christmas and around the table, like, there's no sentences being finished. One person's like, and you can literally see the waiting. to say their thing. And my girlfriend's gotten better at it, but they all still have it. And like I said, I still have it. I have to battle it. I think I've conditioned myself finally, but it took years. And so it took working on it for years. But why I bring this up is because where we're both yellows, that can be a very big challenge in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because it would be very common for those social people who love people. And it's weird. It's not that they feel even guilty sometimes interrupting the other person, but they're just passionate people and excited and storytellers, and they want to share their story. So it's very common. I see this a lot with two yellows, where their big challenge is leaving space for the other person and actually realizing they should get equal stage time to me. And so I feel like it's helped me understand that better. Really, personality types as a whole has helped me have more compassion and empathy for people, because I recognize by understanding it that it's not because Jim is a bad person. It's not, so example is a couple. So let's talk about couples. Come home at night. How many situations in Atlanta are happening like this where, again, I'll go to my color types. That's just what I use, but it's because they're easy to remember. But let's say it's a red and a yellow. So as I told people, it's a very social person and a very just business person, no small talk. Yellow usually likes small talk. A red doesn't. So picture what happens whenever they come home from work. The yellow says, let me tell you about my day. And the red, whether they do it knowingly or not, goes, great. Now I get to listen to somebody say. And then they might even say to the red, what was your day like? Oh, it was a great day. We did lots of business. Like, it's very, but if you get them talking about what they did, the red, if it's about business, they'll get really excited to share that, because that's where they're usually passionate. And so what I'm getting at with all this is understanding that has allowed me to have more compassion for people and understand that we all have either one or multiple of those personalities in there. And so it doesn't make anybody bad. It's just we're different. And this is why. And so, like, if I go to, let's say if I was going to buy something at a big box store, and the person working there is a very, like, I call it a blue collar type. They're very analytical. They're very much feature driven. So they might want to talk to me for an hour about the features in this computer. And me as the red, and the yellow to some degree, because the yellow is social, but they don't really care about the business side. But as the red, I don't care enough, and I don't understand enough what they're talking about. Like, if they're talking about, this is the new software, it's all gone over my head. And I don't want to admit that as a red, because that's embarrassing. So I just don't listen. I tune out. And so what I'm getting at with that part is that I understand why the blue is a blue, and it doesn't bother me. I don't go, I wish they'd just stop talking about the features. I don't care about the features. So I'm willing to adjust to them. So that was a long answer to that. But I think in the intimacy and relationship world, how it's affected me as a partner is I have compassion both for who she is. Yeah. I also have compassion for who my children are, meaning their personality types. And I also understand whenever they all get together. And by the way, my son, the older one that talks now, is yellow too. So when they all are around a table, I understand that if I don't get a word in edgewise, I'm okay with that. And I more take it like, look at this is amazing, rather than being bothered by it. And for the record, my girlfriend's father's like, he's like the most like, yep, nope, like just to the point. So when he gets there, he just like takes it all in too. But I basically have said they don't need one more yellow in this 5-person conversation. So then I kind of move out and say, hey, Eric, what's going on? And let them be. And so I think it's just made me, the best way I can say that is it's made me more compassionate, but more flexible, is I guess to be willing to adjust to the situation rather than trying to, as we know, you can't change anybody. So rather than trying to change my girlfriend to suit my needs. Yeah, beautiful. So you're talking about the blue guy at the box store going through all the analytical stuff. Why did you call bLUtalks? Is there a personality reason why you called it that? And explain what bLUtalks is and you know that how it started. And I was so blessed to be able to speak in San Diego when it was first getting off the ground. So first the color, you could have called it Yellow Talks. Yes, I could have. And so I mean, there's a couple of answers there, but I will tell you it has nothing to do with the personality types. What's funny, by the way, so you mentioned the yellow. I should have mentioned the only other one is green. And there was a part of me when I was first looking at it saying, should it be bLUtalks or greentalks? And I was thinking like green screen, and I was thinking like, tying it into video and stuff. But bLUtalks, there's a couple reasons. So first of all, it was never designed to be anything related to TEDx talks, but I did I did look at some things that TEDx does, and I was like, I like how they have a red and black theme, so I do like the color theme, and I mean, like, they don't call it red or anything, so I wasn't taking anything from them, but I like how they have a consistent color all the time, and my favorite colors are red, black, and blue, and so blue worked on multiple levels, so I said, okay, I like having the idea of having it be around a color. Blue is, out of the three, is probably my favorite, but I like the idea of it being about a color. At the same time, I like an acronym. And so I was like, I'd like to have a 3-letter name. Well, none of those colors are 3 letters. And then I said, well, unless you drop the E off blue, and it still spells blue, like it's still pronounced blue that way. And then I thought, well, maybe we could get funky with it. So we have like the lowercase b and the capital L and U. And so the answer is really, it was just a matter of kind of one of those brainstorms where I wanted to have a consistent color. And then as I was toying around with colors, I was like, well, maybe that could be the name. And then I started going, okay, what could that stand for? Could it be an acronym that stands for something? So BLUE stands for business, life, universe.
Nice.
And in terms of why it even started in the first place, is I had students in my TEDx program and my speaking program saying they wanted different things. The speaking program, they said, hey, I wish you had a done for you service where I could just literally walk on a stage, speak, and you do everything else. And then I had students in my TEDx program, like a brand of talk program we have, saying, I want to do a TEDx talk, but I want to speak on spirituality. Where do I do that, Corey? And I was like, there's really nowhere. Like there's Gold, Casa, Mind Valley and stuff like that, but they only have one event a year. And so I was like, there's no real branded talk that travels around that you can speak on spirituality as well. Like we're not only spirituality, obviously you can speak on business or life stories. But that's where the idea came from, because they were asking me for this thing that didn't exist. And I thought maybe I have a moral obligation to create it. Then that was where I just told you about. Then we sat down and said, what could the name be? What could the color be? So the logo's blue as well, like the color blue. And that's kind of where it came from. And then the last part to this whole story was, what do we do with it? And originally we thought it would be like TEDx Talks in the sense that we would do live stages. We didn't think beyond that. Like that was the original plan. And so, as you know, because you were part of those first 3 stages, we filmed in Western Canada, San Diego, and at Harvard University. And we filmed those 3 events over 3 months, September, October, November. And so the plan was film these talks. Then we have like 50 some talks in the can. And then we'll start doing 1 a week. And then we'll film more and just keep going, almost like TEDx. But what happened was this, we did all that stuff I just mentioned, filmed the talks. The last one was done about 3.5 months before this little thing that some of us know about now called COVID started. And so we basically hadn't even launched yet. And all of a sudden the world says we're in a pandemic. And basically, without saying the word, says you're not doing a live event for the near future. And all of a sudden the only part of bLUtalks that exists is live events. But we hadn't launched. So then it becomes, okay, what could it be if it's not just that? And this kind of brings the story to, to some closure. But essentially what we did is I looked and said, okay, what are the things that built my brand? What are the platforms? And I realized it was podcasting, speaking, and writing. And so I said, maybe bLUtalks can be podcasting, speaking, and writing. Well, we got the speaking covered. So what if we launched a bLUtalks podcast and a bLUtalks book series, an anthology type series that would be ongoing? And so we decided to add those elements. And then before we launched, the last piece of this puzzle was you spoke at the same event as her, Elise Rothman. Elise said, Corey, I'd like to do a virtual event. I watched Pete Vargas do his Rise Up Challenge, and there were like 100,000 people attended it. What if we did something like that? She said, I don't have the network, but with bLUtalks, I feel like we have the start of it. And I said, well, I'm not really into the virtual side that much, but oh, well, what do we got to lose? So I said, we'll try it once and see what happens. So that was the first one we did. We had over 40,000 people watch it that week.
Nice.
This is people we wouldn't get otherwise. Like if we didn't do this. And so then it was like, now I have an obligation to add this into the mix. And so now bLUtalks is those 4 platforms. It's the live stage, which are coming back now. We've done 2 live events since COVID started, but we did have to pause some. We have Columbia University coming up in June, and we do have events coming up in 2022 that look like they'll all go forward. So we are getting back into that. But what held us over is then launching that virtual stage, the podcast, the book series. And since that time, Allana, we've helped over 200 people become best-selling authors. Most of them had never written a book before or a chapter in a book.
Holy shit. Wow.
It's pretty huge. Like getting them emails of somebody saying, I'm doing a happy dance. I just told my mother I'm an author. She's like, oh my God, I never thought you could be an author. And you sometimes forget that you're impacting somebody's life at that level.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, 200, a little over 200 people. And we have book number 5 just about to come out. Book number 6 comes out in a couple of months. And then the book series, the number 4, the last one, well, number 5 is just about to come out. So the last one we put out just hit the Thinkers 360 list of the top 50 must-read books. And the bLUtalks podcast has been on the Podcast Magazine top 50 charts twice. It's also been on iTunes charts. The virtual stage, those talks and stuff are now on Apple, Roku, Amazon, Google Play, iTunes, Connect TV. Your talk is on Connect TV. Connect TV is out of Hollywood, which also means, which I told you the last time we talked, we now have an IMDb channel for season 1. Yeah. So internet database. And so it just, I mean, to finish that all off, and it's not meant to be a me ink about the brand, but I've been blown away. Like, it's really just been over a year since we officially launched. Yeah. And I've been blown away. We've had conservatively over 1 million people have seen bLUtalks in one form or another. We were, like I say, getting ready to put book 6 out in the new year. We, the virtual events, we've interviewed over 300 people. So either they've been interviewed or they did a presentation, but over 300 people have been on our virtual stages. We're just over 100 now. People have been on the live stages, and we're adding another 70 in 2022. And so it just keeps growing and becoming something I never thought possible. And I'm just super stoked because the whole goal was to highlight thought leaders or people who want to become thought leaders or influencers. And to see it come to life at a grassroots level, I haven't done much promotion. That's the next 12 months is about doing a lot of media, but we haven't done that. To see it grow the way it has is so rewarding. And then what we're also doing in 2022, and you'd be eligible for this, is we're going to actually do bLUtalks Awards. And so we will be nominated and we'll have some people win awards. We also are going to do an author type site eventually, which is like Huffington Post, where only bLUtalks people can submit their articles. We've had Brown on our virtual stage, Mark Victor Hansen, who I mentioned, Evan Carmichael, the YouTube guy, and on and on. So it's just been mind blowing.
I love this. I went to Columbia, so I'm wondering if I'll make a return appearance and do a bLUtalk at my alma mater. That would be amazing.
That would be cool.
So for those that when COVID hit, they were like, well, I can't, it'll never, why try? You didn't react. I'd say you responded and pivoted and allowed it sort of to take a life of its own. And it seems to have grown bigger than you thought it would. And your heart is so beautiful in being of service to thought leaders and hey, I'm a first-time author, to I'm a best-selling author, to really helping influencers get out there. What do you think if you were to take like this meta approach, like looking down upon, like, yes, all the nitty-gritty and all those numbers and all that success is like friggin' phenomenal. And yet, who are you being that allowed for that guidance to pivot and serve many people more than you even thought? What do you think is going on of who you are as a leader, as a facilitator of this inspiration and energy? Like, from a real spiritual perspective, what do you think it was that allowed something that looked horrible to turn out magnificent?
That's a great question. And, it's funny because one thing that I think of, and I sometimes try to push this down, and I know we never should push stuff down, but the Canadian in me as well wants to, I shared some of those numbers, and the Canadian in me wants to go, I just want people to realize I'm just sharing these because I'm passionate about it and I want them to realize what's possible. Yeah. But then there's also the Canadian in me goes, I hope it doesn't come across from an ego perspective because, from my end, and this goes back to your question, a couple things happen. One, why it probably worked it the way it did is because I made it about, I let it be about why we're doing this versus about what I feel. Yeah. And this has taken me years to learn. Like, as a speaker, it's the same thing. Why do speakers get nervous on stage? Because they're making it about themselves. Yeah. Whether they know it or not, they're going, oh my God, what if I do this? What if I fail? But instead, if you could say, what if that person right there, I changed their life because of something I said, even if it wasn't astronomically world changing, it could just be me saying, I was raised by a single mother and here's what that did for my life. And then maybe that lady in the row goes, oh my gosh, maybe my kid won't hate me when they grow up like I think they're going to, because I had to make hard decisions. Yeah. And so And by the way, that's what I do. When people say, what is the first thing you do when you get on stage? I think about a testimonial somebody gave me about something that impacted them on a stage. Before I start speaking, I always say, remind myself of what somebody said, because that reminds me it's about them, not about me. So one thing that allowed it to happen, I think, is for me to recognize that this was about a bigger movement than Corey. And so I can't be hung up on the little details, because then I'm not serving the people who really need this. But I'll give you a more detailed answer, because to me, that's just what I feel in the moment. I felt is like, I said, this can't be about me. This, COVID happening, I can't make it about, oh, poor me, what's going to happen to our brand. I have to make it about how do we find a new way to get these stories and messages out. The other side to what you said, and I'll go in a little bit of depth here, but not a whole lot of depth, because it's kind of like the slightly secret project, which you know about, which is the documentary I've been working on. And the detail I will go into is to say that it's about synchronicity. And so one of the things that happened for me, which has been such a blessing, Allana, I was that person 20 plus years ago that if you started talking to me about meditation, yoga, my eyes would glaze over. I would be like, you're talking witchcraft, stop talking witchcraft. Like, I didn't have any clue. It was just like totally out there to me. When we hear people say woo-woo, and the people that mean it, that don't mean it in the nicest of ways, I was like, I wasn't ever judging somebody, but I was just like, that's what it seems like to me. It's just out there. And so that's going back 20 some years. And I won't go through all the details of how I changed, but I evolved over the years, where all of a sudden I did yoga and it helped my balance when the doctor said nothing could help. And then I did that 1 minute Shavasana laying down the ground. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the best minute of my day. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can lay on the ground on my own. I don't have to go to yoga to do that. That's a thing called meditation. And so I slowly eased my way in. But what happened in the last few years, and this is during the COVID thing, while I was filming these interviews, is I started writing down synchronicities in a journal. So I have a synchronicity journal, and if I'm not with the journal, I'll put it in my, I'll text it to myself, and then I'll transfer it over to the journal. But why I do that is because, there's the book, The Celestine Prophecy, talks about the more you recognize them, the more they happen. And I was like, I don't want to just recognize them and then forget them or whatever. I'm going to write them down, and then it's my body reminding myself what they are, so I'll get more of them. But here's how this all relates to the question you asked, is once I start really seeing in the real world synchronicities happening hourly that I would have thought, without noticing them years ago, would only happen once in your life or once every year. All of a sudden, I'm like, this changes everything. And if it changes everything, then what it meant to me was that I need to be flexible. And if I'm flexible, the universe will tell me where to go. Like, in other words, what I mean by that, I don't mean like the universe will say, do this. And I mean, like, I'll just be guided with intuition that this is the decision to make. So how this all relates to how I changed, which changed what happened with COVID, with bLUtalks, is it allowed me to already go, okay, the universe is on my side. It is helping me. If I look back at point of references, the worst times of my life actually weren't the worst times of my life. They didn't matter much later. They turned into the best times of my life. So then I was able to have those, what I call reference points from the past, to go, okay, now I'm presented with something new. Well, I know every other time in the past this has happened, it's been for my own good. So if I know that, then I'm not going to stress about this. What I'm going to do instead is sit down and say, what does the universe want me to create? And I actually went inward and said, does it still want me to do bLUtalks, or is it telling me not to? And it said, heck yes, we still want you to. In fact, how it told me that was I was asking that question, and in that week, I had like 5 people say, this bLUtalks thing is changing my life. Even so much as people saying, thank you for getting me to write my story, because I've never written it down before. And now it's opened up everything for me. And then I've seen some of those people in less than 2 years go on now to write their own book. And so, but having like, I had more messages like that in the week I was saying, do I let this go? Well, to me, the universe is absolutely telling me you need to keep pushing forward. And so I don't know if that answered the question, but I think it's that I've been diving deeper and deeper into the heart-based approach, intuition-based approach to business or leadership. And then the other side is me actually saying, how can I make sure it's not about me, it's about the other person? And, funny, Allana, because, I know that the show is about intimate, both conversations and relationships, but a lot of this ties into the intimate side of things, because, if you can understand that the universe is putting it in your path for a reason, then it makes it easier sometimes, to listen whenever maybe this is a person you should be paying attention to. And it could, we hate to say it, but it could be the opposite. Maybe the intuition is telling you this isn't a good fit. And So I think if we can learn about using our intuition, what we might call our gut feel, I think that serves us. And I think if we can also understand that it should be about the other person at least as much as us, and that's going to have a better chance for a relationship than when you go out on that first date and all you talk about is you and your business. The funny part I don't get is that almost never works. So I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's the person's personality when they're doing that, but I don't know many relationships where a person said, oh, I love the first date where all he did was talk about his job and his career, the money he makes and the car he drives and the house he lives in. So I think there's stuff we can learn from all this, even though I'm really relating it to business.
Yeah, no, I love this. It's so, I love how we've known each other for years and years, and we go on each other's podcasts and we speak and play and do all these things together because we're so aligned. When COVID first hit, there was this feeling inside of me. I knew it was like a wave. It looked like a surf, like a wave of fear coming and like a mental health crisis coming. And I knew enough to go, I have a choice to be crushed by this wave or to get on top of it and surf it. How can I get out in front of it? And so I was literally at a hotel, at an event. 4 of 30 of us showed up. The whole hotel shut down. I didn't even know if I could get home. But I said to my staff, we need to serve. We need to give. So we're going to do 14 days of succulent lockdown adventures or something. Give me 14 songs. I'm going to rewrite them with my own funny little song about COVID. I'm going to sing them a cappella. And we're just going to give this away for 14 days so that we're together. Like, so it was about contribution. It was about service first. And then I went into how can I serve the people that are coaches like me to take their level to the next, with the wonderful quantum psychology processes I've been trained in. So I started a coaching certification, and it wasn't until like halfway through. And it was all about helping them thrive. During COVID, it's like a different point of view. What's right about this versus what's wrong? And then my sales gal said to me, she's like, you know what? You work way too hard. And I had just decided to start Heartmates, which is again, another, how can I get out in front of this mental health crisis and help people become the one in community, this heart-based approach, in order to find the one. So I'd started the app, started the coaching thing. And she's like, you need some help. Why don't you allow yourself to receive help with some of these coaches starting to work in your organization so you can follow your dream with Heartmates? And all of it was based on contribution. Had I known, Corey Poirier, how friggin' hard an app is to create and the hundreds of thousands of dollars and bugs after bugs and getting investors and all these things I didn't have any clue how to do. If it was about Allana or if it was about attachment to a result, I couldn't have kept going. It was about this bigger service and this bigger contribution to support people at a time that's tougher than ever. But what's right about that is we slow down and really discover what really matters. And to me, it's these intimate relationships. It's our stories. It's our truth. It's that being more interested than or in the other rather than trying to be interesting and in creating these safe places. So I still love that we're on the same page about when you lead with what you can give, which I believe requires doing enough work to feel whole on the inside. You can't give from empty. You can only give from the overflow. Otherwise, it really isn't giving. It's like a strategy and an obligation and all the rest of it. So true giving is from the overflow. So we have to have this heart-based approach with ourselves, and then we can give. And then it really does take on a world of its own. And I'm a Canadian too. And we're raised not to have egos and make it like, sorry, all the rest of it. But it is wonderfully humbling to have something grow bigger than you ever could imagine when you know that it came from such a pure place of generosity. So I'm really thrilled with the alignment of what we're sharing here. And then finally about this synchronicities and this documentary again, back to you again. Synchronicities are proving to you that the universe is listening and the universe is on your side. What would your guidance be to people in the dating world or in a relationship about how to look for maybe how is this relationship actually for me, or the vice versa? Maybe this relationship is complete, or how is this dating world for me, or how is maybe dating this person not a match? Because when we choose love, anything not love is going to show up to be healed, right? So when you choose intimate relationship, you're either going to get a divorce or you're going to have a breakthrough in your relationship, or you're going to break up with somebody and then meet the love of your life. It doesn't always look like fairy tales and bunny rabbits, right? So what are your thoughts on synchronicity and love?
I feel this, to your point, I mean, there's a couple of directions to go here, but I feel like on one hand, it's challenging because when we're in, and I'm going to put quotations, I'm not saying, because I'll say when we're in love. And in some cases it's lust, in some cases it's love, I believe. But when we're, and I could even say when we're in lust, but let's just say the person is in love, but it's guised as lust right now. I think the challenge there is what I'm about to share. It's hard for us to see anyway, because we're only seeing one thing. Like we're seeing, oh my gosh, this is like butterflies and everything, but we're not, here's the challenge. We're probably not using our intuition or seeing the synchronicities of this is, whoa, this is a red flag here, because we're just like, I'm in this bubble and this is going to be the best. And I'm going to use an example. I'm not saying the name. So I'm going to use an example from my life of a person where I wanted it to work, but it wasn't the right fit. And so there was this girl that I dated, and we only dated for a month, and nobody else would know, but she would know who she was based on this. But we dated 20 years before almost, and for like 4 months, and then broke up, and then ended up social media, found each other, and got back together and dated for a month. But in that month, it was the same as the previous time. It was like butterflies. It was like, oh my gosh, I think she's the one. And this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to give you a real world example that we still use in my relationship today that I still talk about. But I went on a trip with this person, and this is going to go to intuition. So this is me still head over heels, gaga, butterflies. And we went on this trip, and we went to a place. And again, I'm trying to be kind of vague, but we went to this place that's a gorgeous water place that a lot of people see as like a tourism site. And we were going between there and the next town. And we stopped at this little tiny small town gas station, and she said, I want to go to the bathroom. So she went into the bathroom. I stopped for her to go to the bathroom, and I stayed outside with her child. And again, I won't go into anywhere, like I won't say male or female, but sat outside with her child. And she went into the bathroom. And so what it was an outdoor bathroom at the gas station. It was behind, I couldn't see it, was behind the gas station. She went and grabbed the key, went out, went to the bathroom, went back in, and walked back by me and went put the keys back in, and then came out. And so that it was my turn. I went to the bathroom. I went and stood in line at the gas station of like 8 people to get the keys. I get to the front, and this is like maybe 20 minutes has passed since she's gone to the bathroom. And I said, yeah, I just wanted to get the bathroom for the men's bathroom. And she said, oh, there's only one bathroom. And so, Allana, even in my butterfly moment, what I clued in at that second is she walked past me with the key, brought it in, put it on there, and didn't tell me. And so basically I had to go in, wait in line to get a key and to go to the bathroom, instead of her just saying, here's the key, so you can go. And I called it getting my key. Like I said, she didn't even get me my key. And I started going out with my girlfriend that I've been with now for 7 years. I said that to her. I said, and I told the story. And then so the next Christmas or birthday, one of the two, she bought me a key to put around my neck. And she said, I'll always get you the key. But my point of that, Allana, is so that seems so tiny. It's such a small little action. But to me, it's a massive red flag for me. Because I try when I'm with somebody to think about, like, if I were walking out, like this person's watching my child and with my child, and I'm going to walk past them and not even.
How can I make their life better?
Versus how can I make it only about me? And that's how I felt, is that the person was like, you don't matter. I got mine, basically. And, and the person ended up telling me that their child called them a man eater. This is after that. And we were kind of like almost done. And the person embraced it and said, and, I totally am and stuff. And so some of the things that I was reading turned out to be true anyway. But the point is that when you said about, how do you listen to your gut? That's a gut moment to me. Whenever this person is totally couldn't care less whether or not I get the key. And I know, like I say, it sounds like a small thing, but that's an example that seems so small, but it's pivotal in my life. And in the fact that I realized immediately, even in my middle of my gaga, that this person wasn't for me. And then, by the way, once the rose-colored glasses are off, then for the next 2 weeks before because we were on a trip together. We were still together for a week on a trip, and then had to fly back. And so for the next 2 weeks, I could start seeing all the signs.
Sure.
But I had to see that first one first. So what I would say is, even though it's harder when it's early on, what I would say is watch for a red flag of something that's, I don't think we should try to change anybody, but what's not we'll say not negotiable for you.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not negotiable in a relationship for the other person to never think I exist. Like to be about them, they get theirs. Sorry, you're on your own. Yeah. To me, even though I believe we have to be whole on our own before we can bring that to a relationship, I also think we should be partners in crime. I don't think we should be, going, well, they'll figure it out. They're on their own. Yeah. And so I look at it like, what would she be like once the zombies came? She would be, she'd be long gone. And she might even throw something to me to catch that the zombies would want to attack me.
Yeah, and like, tasty.
Yeah. So did that answer the question though? Just the intuition in the gut was just of, is it something that when this happens that I realize that's something that I wouldn't be okay with, knowing I'm not going to ever try to change her. I know she wouldn't change, and I wouldn't try to change her from the person that wouldn't get the key. I'll leave that to the next person to work through. Yep. But for me, that was a thing that I wasn't willing to accept, and I would never try to change her. So I just said, that's not for me.
It's really great. A couple of things on what you just said, Corey. One, you were willing to know what you know. You were willing to feel what you were feeling. You were willing to not just see half of life with the rose-colored glasses. You were willing to see the other. And that takes a lot of bravery, because when you feel that, when you see that, then you have to feel that. And when you feel that, then to be congruent and aligned with your heart and your values, you're going to have to take an action. And that might be uncomfortable. So you go down all these other steps, which is why so many people just stay la, la, la over in the rose-colored glasses. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, what I believe is unique about heartmates is it's whole people coming together, whole mates becoming heartmates. In my past, when I was in what I would call soulmate relationships, I really was empty. I really had it that he would complete me. I really had it that, you're my other half, and now we're whole together. And on a good day, that would look like me overgiving, or, even saying no to me to say yes to him first, because he was the source of my worth and my approval and all the rest of it. And on a bad day, he was like lowest on the list and I was taking care of myself. Like, so I've been the key woman, or I've been keyed, or whatever you want to call it. I've been on both sides of that in what I call a soulmate relationship. And those were really great to show me my shadows and show me where I needed to come into wholeness. And I think a time single for a period of time where we do, not forever, but we do enough inner work where we're in a community where a lot of people, so you're not alone, but you're not necessarily dating, but you're getting that, conscious connection and the community and the rest of it, while we're all calling one on ourselves, like taking ownership, not blaming self, not blaming other, but growing. And then when you're whole and you come together, it's like you complement, not complete each other. And you literally awaken the best in each other. So you're already friggin' amazing. You're already whole. But what? I could be even more creative and do bLUtalks? What? I could be an amazing mother, and like how you bring out the best of your 7-year relationship with your girlfriend. To me, that's what humanity's calling for. Like, yes, we want to be our best self. Yes, we want to have healthy relationships and partnerships, personally and professionally. And yet, why? If we turn with soulmates, to me, it's like they face each other. Oh my God, you complete me. But heartmates face outward. They were beside each other. They're better together, but it's for consciousness. It's for humanity. There's like more to give from the overflow by being together that uplifts all. And I was just on this trip in Egypt. I don't think I even told you this. I just got back after 2 weeks, and about 20 of us went on a spiritual mission to do various activations. We were like inside the Great Temple, or Great Pyramid. We were doing all these different rituals, and it all was for something bigger than us, even bigger than our own businesses. It was for humanity, to infuse love into the collective consciousness. And honestly, even though I created heartmates for others, and even though you created bLUtalks for others, like, we're going to pretty much meet those people. We're going to literally have some sort of like skin in the game and see them rise and hear their little, oh my God, I told my mother I wrote a book. Like, but this was something for the first time ever, Corey, in my whole life, that I did it for people I'll never meet, I'll never see, and that it'll ripple beyond my life. And it was really the next level of humility and grandeur, like deeper roots, higher shoots, for me to do this with others. And the love that poured through the group and that we gave to humanity, I don't know, it just felt like one of the most noble things I've ever done, because I'm still a little attached to the result. I want to see it. I want to party. I want to celebrate. I want to fist pump. I want to ass slap. Like, I want to but this one, part of it anyways. I mean, I'm sure there'll be measurable results as well, but the unmeasurable results, I'm really proud that I'm able, by leading with service, by leading a life of contribution, getting to this place where it's okay if I never even get one iota of recognition or even get to have the joy of seeing it arise. I can feel it and I can know it and I can still be that. So you're one of those flavors of people that I know will ripple the work that you do to people that you'll never know that read your book. So speaking of who will read your book, I know you have and I'll put this in the show notes, everybody, thebookofwhyaudio.com. You're a very prolific writer, bestseller so many times. So maybe some of the people that will download this you'll hear from, but maybe you'll never know. And a life will be changed and you'll never even hear. So tell us more about the Book of Why.
Well, I will. And then, Allana, after I tell you about this, I have one super quick question for you that I want to ask you if we have time.
Please.
The Book of Why and How is a book that I wrote roughly, it was released first roughly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if we have one of your quotes in the book. We might.
We do. You asked me and I'm like, have we known each other that long? That's amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that book was released as a self-published book for 3 years, roughly. Then I brought it over to Morgan James Publishing, a New York publisher, and it's really had a facelift. Like James Redfield, who I mentioned, Celestine, he wrote the foreword.
Nice.
Our mutual friend, John Gray, was one of the nice people to endorse the book. And JJ
Nice.
Virgin, who I don't know if you've had her on the show.
Yeah, I've interviewed her on my podcast as well.
I figured you probably had. And so I mean, those are little facelifts to the book.
Yeah.
But it's been around for, like I say, roughly 5 years. And the book itself is about how do you find your calling, essentially. So the why to me is the mix of your passion and purpose. So in the book, I find passion is what you do, stand-up comedy, helping people get together, whatever that looks like, it's the what. So photography. Purpose to me is why you do it. Because you want to create a ripple in somebody's life. You want to create an impact. You want to capture photos so they become a legacy of somebody's life. And whatever the why is. So to me, whatever the why you're doing it is. So to me, why is the two of those and combined. And so the book is about how do you help a person find their why? So in the book, we try to help people discover what their calling is. But then to be a little bit different than just a book about the why, we also focus on we talked about those interviews I've done. So we basically reveal, once you found your why, here's how you can follow suit to the top thought leaders who are impacting positive lives. Here's what they do differently than everybody else so that you can do those as well. And then finally, because it's broken down into 3 acts, and the third act is called Enlightened. And it's basically, how do you do all this stuff in an enlightened way? So how do you do it for humanity? How do you do it so that you can sleep at night? And so basically the book is broken down into those 3 sections. But at the heart of it, we're trying to help a person find what they were called here to do so they feel like they know their purpose. They know what they were called to do. And so the book is designed, literally, I found my why, it changed everything. So it's me trying to help you find yours. And it's, like I say, it's what do you do to find it? What do you do once you find it? And how can you sleep at night after you do that? And then on top of that, we have 400 quotes at the back by various thought leaders. Like I say, I believe Allana included. And that is, the idea is there is to give other perspectives. And I've learned, and you probably learned, that one quote can change a person's life. To me, the idea of 400 quotes and just one of them can change somebody's life, I thought I need to make this possible to make the book different. And so what I'm giving away for your listeners is actually the audiobook version. So for those of you that aren't readers but yet you love listening to audiobooks, or those that either way just want a copy of it, basically what this is I recorded the audiobook after we wrote it, and I decided to offer it up for free. So when you go to the bookofwhyaudio.com, you basically immediately get access to the entire book.
Nice. And you can listen to it as you're I'm not sure exactly when this will air, but if it's over the holidays or starting your new year, working out, walking in nature, driving. I'm living now in Utah and South Dakota, so I do a lot of driving for 10 hours back and forth. So it'll be perfect for all of that. And when I really think about tying this all into intimacy, when you know why you're here, you have this sense of belonging and this sense of mattering. And you don't need the outside to approve of you anymore. You don't need everything to be so controlled on the outside. You're free. You're free to be you, and you're free to give and receive. And life just, as you said, you can sleep at night, but you also get to dance through the day a lot more when something as core to our existence is clear and that you're in the flow with that. So it's such a beautiful gift of intimacy, knowing I belong, I matter, I know my why, I'm being it, I'm giving it, and life is magical. So thank you, Corey. Oh, it's so good to have you back on the show. So grateful. So as we conclude here, people can learn more about bLUtalks, the book of why audio.com. They can download that right away. What are your closing thoughts from your heart to the viewers and the listeners?
So I think this ties into this whole idea of finding a person's calling. What I will say, and in the book, just a reference, this is from the book, but it ties into my final thought, is I reveal what I call the most important vitamin you'll ever take in your life. But it's a vitamin you cannot buy in the store. It's not physical, but when you take it, it will change everything. I can almost promise you that. And it changed everything for me. And so I call it vitamin P, which goes back to the purpose. It's basically living every day on purpose. Like you said, you can sing and dance every day. Bob Dylan, I love it. He said a quote, somebody asked him how he defines success, and a quote, Bob Dylan, it's out there by him, says, if a man or a woman, I edit the woman, because back then they always, if a man or a woman goes to bed at night and gets up in the morning, and in between those hours, they only do that which they love, they're an absolute success. And so what I would say, sort of in closing, is you need to start taking vitamin P. And for some people, like we help people, we have an actual exercise, but we help people find their purpose and calling. And some people it takes 3 months. Some people it's immediate. Some people it takes a year. But what I would say, Allana, is when you hear the numbers, like 95% of people live their whole life without finding what they were put here to do. To me, if it takes you 3 months and it changes everything, what do you got to do anyway? You're doing something you love and you're already here anyway. Wouldn't you rather be happy? And so for me, what that feels like, people always say, well, what is it like to have your passion? I say, it's like I have a fire in my belly. And now that it's there, I won't let anybody extinguish it, and I can't go back to not having it. But it's important to add this one other part. Pre me finding my calling and finding my passion, and the thing that drove me to write a book about this, I was, I think I've shared this with you before, but I was a hypochondriac. I battled anxiety for years. And so I was like this person that just didn't know why I was here, wasn't happy. And it was almost like night and day. When I found my calling, it was like I took a vitamin that was like a one-day vitamin. And everything started changing. And that was, oh gosh, it's got to be now almost 20 years ago. And it hasn't faltered. Like I said to people, if you ever see me unhappy, you let me know and I'll give you $10. And nobody's ever cashed in even the $10. And so the truth is that finding that calling, it actually helped me get rid of anxiety, and helped me get rid of hypochondria. Now, I'm not saying it's a prescription for health. I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm saying for me, it was the thing that made all the difference. And I think what it is I believe we can't have pessimism and unhappiness and negativity in our body equally with passion and positivity. And so what happened was I had a lot of negative energy and toxic energy in my body. And when I found my calling, basically it started filling it with positive energy, and it pushed the negative energy out. And then all of the other things started falling into place. So a long tangent to say, this is why I'm so passionate about people finding their passion and living on purpose. So to circle that back, take vitamin P. Whatever it takes for you to figure out what your vitamin P is, find it, take it. It will change everything.
Yeah, I love this. And then my way of saying exactly what you're saying with intimacy is like when we're not connected to ourselves all the way, we don't know why we're here. We don't feel enough. We don't know our purpose or our passion. We're separate from ourselves. We're not intimate with ourselves. We can't be intimate with ourselves, the divine, our creativity, any of it. And living in a state of separation is very lonely, anxiety-ridden, quite often unhealthy. And yet when you come home to yourself, you take your vitamin P, you have intimacy with yourself, your purpose, and you know that I am enough. I actually am enough. There's wholeness and home and oneness with yourself and with source. And then that's how that inner relationship gets mirrored outwardly or projected outwardly into these incredible intimate relationships with your beloved of 7 years and with my guy that I met in January. And not to give up, because I had 2 divorces before that. So no giving up around here. And that oneness with all the people that you get to meet in your vocation, that oneness that you just get to meet a stranger on the street, that oneness that you feel with the divine having your back with synchronicity. Life is different forever. So I I concur, great man. Let me officially say goodbye to you after I press stop. But what I'd like you all to do, first take the action of the bookofwhyaudio.com and also take a moment to reflect. There was a lot of gems in this conversation. Write down something that really spoke to you. Write about it a bit. Really let the truth and the feelings arise, and then take an action so that Corey and I know that this conversation may have changed the trajectory of your life forever, that because we were willing to show up and just love you the best we know how, giving from the overflow. So thanks for being with us on Intimate Conversations, and I cannot wait to be with you next week. All my love.
Thanks, everybody.